to the RedPanda Keegan show, a show where an overly cocky teenage boy talks about random shit he knows about. That boy being myself. You know those diamonds in the rough shows you stumble upon every now and again? Oftentimes you'll find them on streaming services such as Netflix, which also does delivery. Okay, I know that was their thing years ago, and they still do it now to my knowledge. Do people still order Netflix movies? Anyways, who cares? One such show you might have heard of is Hilda, a Netflix original cartoon that was released back in the fall of 2018. That is what I'll be discussing today. As I said, Hilda is a Netflix original cartoon released in September of 2018 and was produced by Silvergate Media, a company that is somehow not silver nor a gate. Originally, Hilda was a comic series created by Luke Pearson, which is what the show is based off. Many of the episodes are named off the books as well. Although Hilda has a pretty huge following alongside it, the only people who really know about it are the people who watch it, which can't be said about most shows. I think it's a bit strange how not many people know about Hilda because it's a genuinely amazing cartoon and I feel it should be praised for what it's worth. Since this entire video is about Hilda, I think everybody should know what exactly Hilda is. The general synopsis of the show is as follows, and I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Taking place in a magical world, an adventurous blue-haired girl, Hilda, who lives in the middle of nowhere with her mother Johanna, loves to explore the world around her with her pet deer fox Twig. Side note, why is Twig such a loved character? It's literally a tiny white fox with antlers slapped on it. It isn't even the most creative creature in the show by a long shot. I much more prefer the Woffs. Hilda soon meets an elf named Alfur, and they easily become friends, like two people in the LGBT community. But due to unfortunate circumstances, Hilda and Johanna have to move to the big city and adopt a completely new lifestyle. Hilda is not used to the urban area since she's lived in the wilderness her entire life and is a huge bitch, forcing her to adapt to this new lifestyle. However, Johanna used to live in the city, so she's easily able to adjust and help Hilda find her place in the city. Trying to adapt to the new environment, Hilda tries to find herself some friends and stumbles upon Frida and David soon after joining the Sparrow Scouts. After going through multiple fantastical journeys and coming across many fictional creatures such as Samara, elves, rock trolls, woffs, a giant dog that eats humans, and a fucking bird and some literal wood, the series wraps up with its final arc, tying together almost all of the prominent creatures in the show, especially the giant dog. What I generally think about Hilda is that, well, it's an amazing show and finding things to hate about it has proven to be really difficult. Seriously, I literally can find nothing to hate about it. Sure, there are some imperfections, but what do you expect? It's a very cute show with well-written characters that fit pretty well inside its own world and atmosphere, and who are perfect choices for their plot, or lack thereof. Not to mention the very stylistic art style and animation, which I absolutely adore. I literally cannot express enough how charming the characters are. Speaking of characters, although there are quite a handful of characters in Hilda you will learn to get comfortable with while watching the show, there are only about 5 you should absolutely know because you're a worthless piece of garbage that can't handle knowing more than what you can count on a single hand. Those characters being Hilda and her friends Frida and David, Alfur and Raven, aka the Great Raven or Thunderbird. Honestly, couldn't they have just made it easier for everyone and just called it either Thunderbird or the Great Raven? Each of these characters has their own personality, and while they're not the most unique or diverse, I think that helps with the simplicity of the show. That's not saying they're all one-sided characters, because they're not. They all just have one core quality that has smaller branches attached to it. Hilda's primary character trait is being adventurous. She'll constantly go headfirst into almost any situation with the mindset that she'll do the thing and it will happen. While she doesn't get all too disappointed when her goals for adventure are not fully successful, she does enjoy it when things go her way and will get upset when what's expected of her is not met. Unlike a freshman girl, she doesn't cry over spilled milk. Neither do I. I'm not a girl. Overall, Hilda is pretty passive in nature and is a really solid main character. Frida is a studious, collected character. I wish I could read. Frida is a studious, collected character who is willing to go out and do adventurous stuff with her friends, but tries to always stay calm and collected, usually thinking and planning things all the way through before heading into action. In other words, she's the brain and Hilda is the adrenaline. Every once in a while, Frida will break out of her shell and go headfirst into situations, especially when things didn't quite go as planned. Frida has a shocking amount of sass for someone so friendly as well. David is the loyal and paranoid friend of Frida and Hilda. David tries to stay sensible, especially in situations where Hilda's body reacts quicker than her brain. Through and through, David will always stay by his friend's side no matter what, unless you're being an absolute idiot like Frida. David is often used as comic relief in the show, in some cases, is very important to the story, as if he's a variable in an equation that doesn't necessarily need to be used to solve the equation, but is sometimes the only way you know how to solve it. He's the backdoor to a situation, pretty much. Alpha is Hilda's elf friend who can be... Alpha is Hilda's friend. Alpha is Hilda's elf friend who can only be seen by whoever signs an elf contract. Wow, that took me way too long to read. In line with his species, Alpha is very dedicated and loyal to paperwork and contracts. Like a businessman, Alpha tries to stay on track, much like Frida, but is much more civil, and like you're friends with your friend's dad. Alpha tries to be supportive of... Alpha is such a hard word for me to say, and I don't know why. Alpha tries to be supportive of Hilda and her friends, but is not the best at understanding human emotions. Raven is literally an over-exaggerating plot convenience. He's always there when they need him, but other than that, he's barely even there. While David is the backdoor, Raven is like a bomb. Raven is like a bomb that just blasts through the wall. As I said, these characters are nowhere near the most impressive I've seen in any cartoon. Just because they aren't the most complicated characters does not mean they aren't super charming, because they are really charming. Sparkle effect. Say that out loud, Keegan. These characters are also perfect fits for the show and really feel at place, and while some characters are objectively better than others, they all make sense. With such a styled show, such basic and cute characters really makes them feel at place, even with all their dialogue. The dialogue in the show is... well, nothing special. Like the washing machines at the laundromat that won't clean my clothes for shit. I'm just kidding, I don't go to the laundromat. I'd go as far as to say that it's probably the worst part about the show, which really says a lot. Get it? It says because the dialogue is not bad. The show isn't written poorly. I just feel at some points it has its moments, but others it's just basic. The dialogue between characters makes sense since most of the time it fits inside their characters, but I just think that anybody could have written it. It's not impressive, but it works, and I know that I've been saying the simplicity and style of the show is really what makes it shine, but I think that outstanding dialogue would have been a perfect choice and make this show go from great to exceptional real quick. There's not much to say here, because it's just that basic of dialogue. However, I will say that the voice acting is great, because the voice actors are really talented in my opinion. Bella Ramsey was a really good choice for Hilda. She's got the perfect amount of little girl energy radiating from her voice. Some characters were casted better than others, which is really apparent with Alpha, who, in my opinion, was done the best, and Hardaker did a really outstanding job. He kind of reminds me of Will Stamper. Other characters just seem to be an acceptable choice, which can go a really long way but not be all too impressive. Sure, casting Oliver Nelson as David makes sense, but I don't think that he did that good of a job. Maybe he did, actually. David is such a basic character that maybe having basic voice acting was done intentionally. That's not what matters, though. What really matters is how invested I was in the characters' voices. Most everybody did a really good job and was really well directed. With such amazing voice acting, it makes the viewing experience that much better, and I really applaud the team for their work in this department. It's finally time to talk about the animation! The animation in this show is just... it's beautiful. It's so good. The animation is so smooth. It may not seem so impressive at first, but just you wait. You will learn to love it. You watch the show and go, yeah, Toon Boom was a good choice, because not only is it efficient, it's also gorgeous, and while Harmony might not be the most impressive or high quality animation to use, I mean, what do you expect from the show? It's supposed to be very stylized, and that's what makes it such a charming show. When put in the right hands, Toon Boom can have works of wonders. If you're unfamiliar with Toon Boom Harmony, just know that it's one of the most used animation services across many professional companies such as Universal and Ubisoft. Even if you end up not liking the animation, does it really take away from your viewing experience? I can't see anybody lacking enjoyment while watching this amazing animation. Some scenes are really well done. Not to the extent of a lot of other shows, but I still really like it. The art style really complements the animation. These gorgeous stylized backgrounds and focused foreground animation, it's just beautiful. I don't know why, because they're completely different, but I relate the animation in Hilda to the animation in The Last Kids on Earth. It seems to have a really unique animation style, which is to be expected with Toon Boom Harmony, as not many people use it the same way since it's such a diverse program. Just watch this show, it's so good! The art style used is really cute. All the characters are bubbly to an extent, and all the children are just so cartoony. If not to watch the show for the show itself, watch it to get inspired to become a better artist, because honestly, it is one of the inspirations for one of my styles. The characters are a bit chunky due to the style they use. It's kind of impressive, because they almost mimic the size of your mom. I would like everyone to note that I wrote this part of the script way after I finished the rest because I completely forgot about it. Music is a great way to grab the audience's attention real tight into any sort of visual entertainment, whether it be a show, a musical, a movie, people posting a blank picture on Instagram thinking it'll do shit. It all works, you know? Hilda doesn't have too much of its own original music. All that I know of is the opening by Grimes and the ending theme, which are both bangers to the show. Other than those two, they kind of just took other music from other places, such as Fool by Frankie Cosmo, which is a really good song and you should go check it out, and My Lover by Kishibashi, another really good song. While it may not be as impressive since they took other music, I think they made really well thought out choices because the songs used were perfect fits. There's not much more to say here since, as I already said, they didn't write all too much of their own music. There's currently only one season of Hilda, and although it wasn't really story-driven, there's a lot you'll need to follow to understand everything in the show. So if you're planning on watching the show, spoiler warning. Skip to insert timestamp here. I know this is going to be all over the place, but just stay with me. Oh, this is gonna take so long. Hilda starts with the beginning scene following Hilda and Twig. Here you get to see Hilda's love for adventure and wilderness. Soon after you find about rock trolls. Giant rocks that are asleep in the day but come alive during the night. Once Hilda arrives back home, you discover the dynamic Hilda and Johanna have with these tiny invisible people who are shown to have disturbed them in the past. Later in the night, one of these things confronts Hilda and tells her what's going on. This turns out to be an elf named Alfer who describes that humans can only see elves once they've signed a contract with them. I know there's already a lot going on, but there's also a forest giant who's looking for one of their friends they haven't seen in a long, long time. Afterward, Hilda and Alfred try to convince the elves to stop disturbing Hilda and Johanna and for them to come to terms with each other. This leads to Hilda and Alfred row a mountain, that's supposed to say two, a mountain, to talk to the leader of the county of elves. That mountain turned out to be the forest giant's lost friend who went to sleep for a long time. Once the two giants reunite, they start to walk off with each other and accidentally step on Hilda's house, forcing her and her mother to move to the city. Hilda really hates the city when she first moves there and begins to refuse to talk to any humans and instead would associate with a bird once she realizes some of the kids are assholes. Johanna is trying to convince Hilda to go to a festival the city is holding, but all Hilda wants to do is help the bird who can't remember who they are and can speak English. It turns out that bird is the Great Raven or Thunderbird, the thing the city is celebrating. Hilda joins the Sparrow Scouts, and the first assignment is to choose a place in the city and clean it up. Hilda is paired with Frida and David to do his tasks, and they soon get to work. They plan things out and get to work, but get sidetracked when one of these small plant creatures steals Frida's badge sash and takes it to their underground society. Then we learn that they did that because Hilda, Frida, and David accidentally took one of their kind, thinking it was just a random plant. Once they resolve that, Frida gets her sash back. For the most part, there's not much more you need to know except David is being haunted by Amara, a ghost-like creature that haunts people's dreams, and only goes away when David overcomes his fears. Hilda in later episodes finds the lost elf clan that can finally end a long-lasting dispute and empty contract between Alfer's clan. What is important, however, are the last few episodes. Hilda learns about house-dwelling creatures that live in the unused space of people's houses and collect unused stuff, Nissa. After Frida and David get into a fight because Frida is being unaccepting of how unorganized she is, without a ghost helping her out, she stops associating with Hilda and David. While Hilda and David are getting ready for a camping trip with the Sparrow Scouts, it is learned that there is a giant dog going around eating people, though most people think it's just a myth. Hilda and David try to help a banished Nissa late in the night and accidentally come across a Mara campfire. Mara that Frida is associating with. Once David finally builds the courage to talk back to the Mara, they realize that they were being watched by the giant dog and run away. Frida makes up with David and Hilda. Later, Hilda is trying to help the banished Nissa by trying to find a home and suggests her house. As it turns out, her house is already occupied by another Nissa, a Nissa who actually raised the giant dog and was able to calm it down. However, the authorities are trying to detain it, while Hilda's friends are trying to get it outside the city walls where it can live its best life. That took way too long. The human-creature dynamic, though only seems to be a small aspect of the show, ends up being the whole reason the season was able to wrap up, and I think that's a bit clever. Even beyond that, I think Hilda's entire plot is really charming. Though it's not much of a story-oriented show, it's still extremely entertaining to learn about how all the dynamics in the show all come together, and it's just so satisfying. I hope I've convinced you all to watch Hilda at this point. If not, please take my word that it is an amazing cartoon and give it a shot. Who knows, you might just like it. And if you don't, then f*** you. I know that Hilda isn't for everyone, and I accept that. Many people might ridicule people my age who are fans of the show because it's a cartoon made for children. You know what I have to say to that? Yeah, maybe it is. Why should that stop people from enjoying it, though? Why can't people enjoy works of art just because it was made for children? That doesn't make sense. Like what you want to like, especially if what you like has value. And Hilda definitely has value. It may be made for children, but that doesn't make it any less entertaining than your anime or D&D. That's a joke. Like what you want to like. I even like D&D. To reiterate, Hilda is an underappreciated Netflix original cartoon produced by Silvergate Media that has generally gone under the radar by the public's eye. If you're a fan of the show, great! Please inform people about it. I really want a second season. I want the crew to explore an actual story. Thanks for watching this video. I hope I convinced you to watch Hilda, and I hope you enjoyed me gush about it. Also, follow my Instagram, Twitter, and OnlyFans. Now it's time for you to listen to E-Rape microwave sounds that I call an outro.